Okay guys, so this right here, you just had 15 minutes to go over example 3. Now listen carefully. Listen. Depending on what you do can make the road to this identity matrix that we were talking about of the diagonal of 1 with the surrounding zeros. Depending on what you do, it could be easier compared to others. Notice, at the very, very beginning in our notes, the last thing we wrote down was swapping. We can swap rows to where if we want to make this 1 move up here, you just swapped row 1 and 2, and you ended up getting this work right here. Okay? Because I want you to discover it. So, hold on, wait. I'm not going to go through this entire problem, but let me show you key points. For one, you see this 1 appeared, and notice my next part was to make this into a 0. There's no swapping going on there. And what I'm going to do is, I need, from this column, to make some kind of positive 5 happen. So if I multiply 5 times row 1, there's my positive 5. When I add it with row 2, notice the work. I get this as a result. From this, I got that. This is how I want you to write your work, okay? It's a little confusing if I were to start it like this, I think, but this is ultimately the way I want you to write your work. Watch. This is my current matrix, running answer right now. When I apply this change, a negative row 1 is added to row 3, this happens.
Oh, so we don't get to write the things.
The scratch work, no, just like I said in the previous video, you want to do that off to the side. So now this is my running answer. So when I do a negative row 3, this happens. And this is my new running answer. Notice these arrows in between each step. These arrows are telling you the next matrix, and so on and so forth. This is how I want you to show your work. Okay? So after you get this matrix right here, notice the change. Here we go. I'm going to do a negative 5R, or row 2. Negative 5 row 2, add it with the row 3, will now get me this. So the next matrix, running answer, is this. So on and so forth, all the way until you get to 0, 2, 0. Now watch. I have a practice worksheet for you on the calendar. If you went to number 4, real quick, I'm going to quickly show you what it will end up becoming. So number 4 looks like this. It starts off as 1, negative 1, 2, 10, negative 1, 1, negative 2, 5. This is number 4 on that worksheet that's in the calculator or calendar. It's linked. 3, negative 3, 6, negative 2. This is where you would start. After doing all the row reduced echelon form, you will end here. Now, to answer the question that was asked earlier, will we ever use this in life? Here's what I'll tell you. On STAR, nah. Anything in high school, testing like SAT, ACT, there might be 1 or 2 questions from ACT that is dealing with augmented matrices, okay? But will you ever have to do this row reduced echelon form by hand? Not by hand. If you have one of those, it would most likely be on the calculator question. But I showed you how to do it. Now, we're not just preparing for SAT, we're not just preparing for ACT, we're not just preparing for STAR, we're preparing for college math. This is one thing in college that if you decide to do anything engineering or math-wise that you will end up doing, and it's a little bit of a nightmare if you did not learn it in high school. I didn't learn this in high school. Nate asked a good question. Will this be tested like on STAR or things like that? It won't. My teacher in high school knew that. Didn't teach it to us, but we needed it. When I got to college, it was a nightmare catching up. It was a nightmare catching up, but I did. So this right here is for upper level, okay? And it's good that you get exposure to it now, for sure.
So you said there's more than one way to solve this, so is there like an easier way that they're showing us all of that work?
So with the easier way, depends on your practice. Okay? Let's say, analogy. What's an easy way to throw a down and out pass 30 yards where it hits the receiver on the line? What's the easy way to hit a high C with the trumpet and band? What's the easy way to hit to an 8 flip with rifles on color guard? The easy way to hit is practice. And everyone is going to practice at different levels. So it will become easy when you've done a lot of hard work practice. It will never become easy if you don't do the practice. Okay? Listen, this is my answer right here. From all that I worked out, if you get something that looks like this, first of all, it doesn't have ones. You with me? Sometimes, even if it had a 1 here, it doesn't have a 1 here. You with me? Now, here's the thing. When it doesn't have 1, and this number is something other than 1, then it will be either no solutions or infinite. Please spell infinite correctly going forward, no worries. Infinite solutions. This is how we know. If this is something other than 1, if it was 1, like the ones that we had earlier, 1, 0, 0, 1, or sorry, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. Guys, if this is 1, then there's only one answer. One answer. No infinite solutions, no solutions. There's one answer, and it would be whatever those numbers are. But if this number is not 1, you must ask yourself this question. And you did this with the elimination method before, even on your quiz. When everything cancels out, you got to ask yourself, does 0 equal 0? Yes. So it's infinite solutions. What if this 0 wasn't here and it was like 4? Then it would be no solutions. So one more time. If this is 1, one answer. If this is something other than 1, it will be one of these two answers. You just have to ask yourself, is the bottom right-hand two numbers equal to each other? If it's true, it's infinite solutions. If it's not, it's no solutions. Do you understand? Okay, any questions? Because guys, you have to practice, please. I hope, and the reason why I did the fractions is because you could see, depending on practice, and these were good questions, you could make a problem more difficult. But if you're using all your skills and resources, you make it easy by the more you know. Okay? Questions? Yeah.
So when you swap a row, you can only do that at the beginning, right?
That's a good question. When you swap a row, usually it happens earlier on, is what I'll say. But remember on the examples that we had, there were some zeros that were already in column 1 where I needed them to be. So you could swap them even then. You can swap any point in time as long as it's keeping this thing as you go through. You with me? Please don't be afraid of fractions. Don't. You can't be. Pretty much starting here and on out, it's a lot of fractions. Ask those questions. Okay? Even that was a good question right there. Multiplying cancellation forms of 1. All right. So the last thing that I'll say is this.